Right, now, while all of this is going on, of course, Anthony Albanese is still out of the country. He was in the Pacific Islands. And I almost fell off my chair on Friday when I heard Anthony Albanese had opened our borders to so-called climate refugees from the small Pacific nation of Tuvalu. Now, I get the PM is trying to court friends in the Pacific to push back on Beijing, but this notion of offering resettlement to people displaced by climate change is ridiculous, especially when recent studies say the Tuvalu Islands are growing. Now,
yeah,
Joe,
so we'll never need to take them. It's win-win. Fantastic. It's the best political deal of all time.
What on earth is going on here, Joe?
There's a lot of anything with Tuvalu is always interesting. Do you know they sold their national domain name, which is TV, to TV networks? It's one of their biggest earners.
Wow.
So they just thought, we don't really use it. Again, 11,000 up until I think it's 2080 or something. It's some decades and decades ahead. That is only about 2/3 of our current humanitarian intake anyway. So it's not a big number. And again, if climate change isn't real, and the islands get bigger and everything's fine, we don't have to take any refugees.
But are we doing this?
If it is, we look like the good guys instead of China.
Yeah, but what sort of a precedent does this set then? I can't help but wonder, at the Pacific Islands, the Cook Islands leaders, are they there with the pockets out? The pockets are out. And they're going, we want funding, we want handouts.
But I think Tuvalu is at risk of actually disappearing the whole country. The rest of them, however much they might lose, they can at least go up.
Joe knows a lot about this because he's a climate refugee himself.
Oh, there you go. He's one of the 280 people that are coming. But the point is that Anthony Albanese has danced his way through the Cook Islands, quite literally, given them the handouts. What about the handouts back home? Well, the country that he's the Prime Minister of, apparently.
That sounds like me propositioning my wife on date night.
Oh, okay. Well, I mean, I don't know what your idea of a date is there, but, you know.
In the last 24 hours, I think it was, at this particular time, I think it was Albanese, he spent close to $600 million in taxpayer dollars for stuff like this. It's like he thinks that the Aussie taxpayer, has these bottomless pit of pockets just full of cash that he can just keep taking from. And I think you've got to look when it comes to things like this, like you mentioned, like the precedent that this kind of sets. Because look at COVID, right? COVID highlighted the differences in expert opinions and the whole climate debacle. You can get two experts in the same field who are telling you, one, we're going into an ice age, and two, we're having global warming and the world's on fire. But in 2018, like you mentioned, there was studies done that said that these particular islands are growing in mass. And if you look at history as well, this particular nation has been renowned for flooding because it is only 2 metres above sea level.
So here's what I don't get on this one, Chris. Help me understand this. So the reason we're doing this is to curry favour with these islanders, so that and what we get in return is we get veto on any security agreement they sign with anyone else.
Yes.
But why would China want to sign a security agreement with an island that's not going to be there in 5 minutes?
It makes a lot of sense. If you see what China's been doing in the South China Sea, they know how to make islands permanent. They make them bigger. Look, I've got no problem with this, right? Australia has a really important role in the South Pacific to look after those communities. We've been doing it for generations. Some of them were former colonies of Australia, Papua New Guinea and Solomon Islands. So we've got to help them out. We'd be spending a lot of this money on their health and education and so forth anyway, as we should. And we do need them to stay with us from a security point of view now. So I think this is a good outcome. I think some of those visas will be made. They'll be used no matter what happens. But again, that's not a bad thing. If the people from Tuvalu want to come and work in Queensland and send money back home, that again is good for our relationship.
We need jobs on farms too at the moment.
Exactly.
So,
Do you agree with what Danica said? Because you floated the idea, is this a template for other Pacific Island nations? I mean, they're all going to be affected by climate change. Why would we only help one small island? What about Fiji, Samoa? What about these other?
I mean, they look at Australia and go, well, we can't come as a political refugee. So then can we use that excuse then of being a climate refugee? I don't know whether that changes a narrative, but it certainly opens up the
I'd like to be a refugee against the Australian government sometime.
Yeah.
Can America accept me?
Now you're sounding like all the lefties are complaining every time the Libs get up. Oh, that's it, I'm moving to New Zealand. Oh, but I've just paid the rates in the tennis court.
Joe, what about this? So Albanese's just been in China, right? And he's sucked up there and it's all good. But next minute, he's making arrangements with Pacific Islanders.
Yeah,
so
because it's a balancing act. Unless you are Beijing or Washington, D.C., you have to walk both sides of the street. There has to be a balancing act between your economic interests, your security interests. You have to make concessions or offers to nations where you can afford to do that. Obviously, you're not going to be able to afford to do that everywhere. I mean, the world is not, as much as we would like it to be, James, the world is not a pure place. The world is not a utopia, much as the left might like to make it their vision of one, which would probably be extremely terrifying. And indeed, much as the right might like to think that the past was some glorious heyday when everyone was happy and united. Spoiler alert, it wasn't. This is a difficult time. This is a difficult region, and we have to do what we can do to shore up support from our closest neighbours so they turn to us in the first instance instead of China in times of crisis. And that might down the trick well before we get the first Tuvaluan refugee on our doorstep. That might end up having a really significant impact on issues that relate really, really strongly to us.
Good call.